nurtures our soul in a way that when we are in our last journey, we don't regret perception that if you have to make money, if you have to be successful in life, being good. Many people wrote saying, I was wrong in doing this. I've gone and corrected the situation. I am not at all a scholar or someone who can remember what Sri Aurobindo and Mother wrote. But I remember 55 years back when I first entered the ashram compound. That was the turning time point of my life. And I got admitted to the ashram in the school. And the 7-8 years that I spent here in the ashram as a hosteler, and when I come to this room, it is so nostalgic that every evening, somewhere around 300 out of 360 days, we would be sitting here. That time it was much smaller room, and we used to live upstairs. I also must admit I bunked many of those sessions, but when I knew that I could not bunk anymore, then I started feeling that there was something. Every session was, some drop was dripping into me unknowingly. Even I could not say that day what I learnt from that 1 hour session, in which I remember Mr. Parashar used to speak, Chachaji used to speak, and many others. So, drop by drop, I started absorbing certain things, and the theme which I captured was Karma Yoga. In all those, or maybe that was something that I wanted to absorb, knowing that ultimately we will be working for livelihood, so we may have to work in companies. So that what I still gather, which about Karma Yoga, which then from a theory I did practice in my 35 years of corporate life, and I want to share some stories which I think had a lot to do with the learnings and the absorptions that I had, what I digested from various discussions or addresses here. One was that from a karma yogic point of view, one has to be mindful and aware of what's going on, aware of yourself. And the most important thing which I later felt was very powerful, even in managing corporations and businesses, was compassion and care for others and care for the world. Now, these may appear to be very high sounding terminologies, but in reality, they do work. And in the ethical context, there is usually talk about ethical compass. So, a person is not able to measure or evaluate what I am doing is right or wrong through that comparison of a ethical compass. But what happens is, it is my personal experience, and I've written a book also, but I will write more and trying to sort of use people as sounding boards, that whatever we absorb or we want to absorb from a very selfish point of view, that I would benefit from this uh, ultimately goes and rests in your heart, in your gut. So it becomes like a software in a computer. When you have the computer, you have the input which we give into the computer as an information. Then the computer has a CPU called Central Processing Unit, which has certain softwares, and then it gives outcomes of what would you do if the problem is this? What would you do if the problem is this? So I think the uh, human mind is nothing but a CPU. But the one thing I realized was that it is not a standard software. Everybody will have different level of components of ethos or beliefs or what I think would be the right thing to do in a different situation. So I think the gut feel that we have is the human software which goes into the supercomputer, and every time you encounter a situation there is an outcome which follows those rules, ethos, beliefs that you have been uh, happy practicing. So it is really you as a brand who is the software behind all the actions that you take. Now, let me narrate to you, because this is becoming otherwise a theory, as to how, in many situations, I encountered during my corporate life, which had a lot of challenges. And since this is Delhi, so all of you would know that there was a electricity board called Delhi Vidyut Board, which got privatized about 22 years back. So I happened to be in the Tata Group that time. I was almost thrown back to Delhi, despite my resistance that I will not work in as a DVB organization, because it was known to be, and it was known, not only known, but it was a fact that there was a lot of corruption in that organization. And so the task given to me, I was the CEO of the company, was to run this organization. So, I mean, I thought I was a misfit, because I thought I always want to be good with people, but how will I work with an organization which is corrupt, and how will I work in an environment where the consumers are in connivance with the employees? So I decided to call a Swamiji to give a lecture on an ethics week. This was about 2 years after the takeover. I will not name that Swamiji, and he has nothing to do with Aurobindo Ashram, fortunately, thankfully. And he, in a very large gathering, mentioned, without any briefing from us, mentioned that DVB was a corrupt organization, so you all people, please behave. Now you are Tatas. And I sort of felt that this is not the right thing to do, because you can't be telling somebody who's now a group of people who were trying to improve. And he kept on saying, and then I sent a message to him through a paper message. Then I finally went up to him saying, Guruji, Swamiji, please, there is something urgent, aap chaliye. And I could feel that there is a sense of unrest amongst the union employees, everybody. And I was then asked that tomorrow's address of mine would be cancelled, and there was a alarm from the alert from the Home Ministry that I should not step out of my house, because there was a plan to kill me. Now, I had this dilemma at that time, that do I abstain from addressing my employees next day, which was a scheduled address on ethics, or do I sit at home? I could not sit at home, and I said, let me, with some precautions, I reached there. And the whole night I kept thinking, what should I say? And what would people expect me to say? So I went, after some thought, Uh, and I first apologized. And this was a gathering of some 300, 400 engineers. Apologized, and I said that, so in our whatever way I apologized, and then I started searching the souls of people as to uh, what would take it. I mean, I thought this was an opportune time to address the issue of corruption, ethics, without saying so many words. So I then said that, look, when we get up in the morning, what do we do first? So we started asking questions. So everybody said, we brush our teeth, we wash our face. Then next, what do? We take some tea. And then I kept on asking them question, all this we do for what? So the answer was that to take care of ourselves, to take care of our body. So then I asked a question as to, we always, all this time we are talking about what we do to take care of our body, but do we do anything to nurture our souls? And first I asked, besides the body, is there something and all? So it went on and on. And then when it come to what do we do to nurture our souls, there was hardly anything that anybody could point out that this is what I do to nurture my soul. And then the whole discussion started. At that time, I saw it could be a very, very bad situation for me, that I would be thrown out, or maybe it'll turn the wheels the other side. And I started telling them stories about how I felt that being ethical had a self-interest. If one is selfish, he would be ethical. This is something which nobody will believe in this. So I told them a story about my children when they got an admission in Mother's International School. I was living somewhere else, and I tried to find a house here, and found a house which would suit me in D229, Sarvodaya Enclave, but the owner was adamant not giving it on rent because he had burnt his fingers. So then I gave him my profile, I work in the Tata Group, this, that, but he did not budge. So once I told him that, look sir, my children are going to be studying in Aurobindo Ashram, and I also being here for 7 years, I could see a change in his attitude. And he started saying, okay, I will come back to India, I will consider you, go and meet my daughter. When I met his daughter, I also saw that association with an ethical entity, organization called Aurobindo Ashram was making a big difference. The rent was agreed as 32,000 rupees. When we started signing the agreement, he agreed to 30,000 rupees. When I was signing the agreement, I said, sir, I will put 25,000 rupees because 5,000 will be beyond my limit from the company. I will pay you separately. From being such a tough, hard negotiator, Mr. Malu, who was the owner of the house, came down from 32 to 30 and suddenly said, no, beta, I will charge you only 25. I was surprised. So when I told this story to everybody that, look, it is not me that I am ethical, it is my organization. If I work and make sure that the organization is ethical, I get a tag-along branding. And therefore, there is a selfish interest in being ethical. So, I mean, obviously, human nature is that one looks at his own interest. So, the idea was to create a business case for being ethical, which is very uncommon to hear this statement, business case for ethics. So, I told them also another thing. I mean, I also learned from somewhere that when you are on your last journey, and assume that the God has given you the faculty or entitlement to hear what people are talking about you, what would you like to listen? And wrote about 150 nice, good adjectives and 50 which were not good adjectives, and nobody chose the ones which were not good. So I said, if you want to listen about yourself as being a caring person, as being a gentle guy, you have to act accordingly. And whatever people talk about you, your your personality is something which gets inherited without a will to everybody in the family. You don't have to write a will to say my personality, my branding will get, everybody will not get, and one will get, another will get. It just goes to your next generation and generation. So that is how I think the point I'm making is that the concept of doing good is good business is basically the essence of what I have over many years been listening from the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and many other like Vivekananda or some in Buddhism, but essentially it remains the same. So the other point I wanted to basically also make was that there is a general feeling that when you retire, then you turn to spiritualism, and that's the time then you become spiritual. But I think there's a need to convince the younger generation that spiritualism, why you wait for retirement? Because the time when you have to apply that is when you are young. And you don't have to wait till you become 60 or, looking at the last leg of your life. Because there is a lot of success stories, which emanate from the theory of being good, doing good, brings you back the returns. I will tell you one more small story on, those days electricity was a subject matter of theft in a big way. So there were these slums as well as big companies which were stealing electricity, and everybody, in fact, no exceptions. So we had to take care of the large industries and first, because they have the ability to pay, but they don't pay. Last were the slums, who really were stealing out of need and not greed. The challenge was that there was something like 80% of the power consumed was being stolen. And we had a role to play that those theft levels have to come down. So I said, how do we start engaging with them? Do we call the police? Do we use enforcement agencies, or we engage with them? I found that there was a lot of scope for improving the quality of their life, apart from supplying electricity 24 hours. So, in short, we did a lot of social work looking at their livelihood schemes, and also giving them more capacity to work through drug de-addiction, some courses, beautician courses, lots of things which we did. And I realized within 1.5 years' time that there was no need anymore to call the police or the enforcement agencies, because we were seeing on our own the numbers from that area, and these were Sultanpuri, Jahangirpuri, with very, I would say, difficult MLAs in those areas to deal with. And I was surprised in about 2 years' time that the theft had vanished totally. And when we interviewed some of the people, they said, "So we remember your company for doing all the good that you've done to us. We just cannot steal electricity and not pay." So this is the power of doing good. And had we enforced, had we brought the police, there would have been very ugly situations, and it would have not made any sense for anyone. One more example was a place called Majnu Ka Tila. If you do not know, it is a very famous place in Delhi where the law and order is zero. Same situation. And we were challenged by some of the people that we don't do anything for our people. So I thought that what good can we do to this community? And the problem in that community was that drugs was a very big menace there, and the school dropouts were almost everybody used to drop out from the school. They got involved in drugs and became criminals. So how do we solve that problem? I can't go and give a lecture on, why should they be doing good things and why should they behave. So we made them our company's franchisee. I said, you run this business from Majnugarh Tila as our authorized company. You form a company and we'll pay you handsomely. Again, about 25 of them, out of a total of say 80 or 90 people, they just became entrepreneurs. And they became entrepreneurs, they got benefits of incentives, our company solved our problem, and it was a win-win. So again, the point was that we started thinking of doing some good for them, and in the end, we benefited. And this whole cycle can always apply in any situation, whether you are in a business, whether you are in your personal life. So ultimately, what I think is that whatever is a gut feel, that's built on what we learn during our, the entire life. It just gets registered in your gut feelings. The instinct that basically tells you a reflex action on what I should be doing is never a fluke. It is actually a very complex formula running in your mind which gives you the input. And I think the second thing I feel is, as I would repeat, that spiritualism is something not meant for when you get old. It is something that should be, I would say, taught in a way that it is the way you conduct yourself. The rest of the books that we read on different subjects is the knowledge, but how to use that knowledge is basically coming out of spiritualism, and that should really be right from the time you start understanding when something is said to you at the age of maybe 7, 8, 9, and not reserved for post-retirement. These are my experiences, so given the short time, but I have many stories which made me believe in what I am saying. Thank you.
Sunilji, thanks a lot. This was your first appearance in the Sunday Satsang series, and I'm sure it will not be the last one. It was really very thrilling to hear of all the stories that you shared from your personal experience from an organization which is no secret is a corrupt organization, or at least was a corrupt organization when you joined it, and you had resistance to joining it. But then once you joined, you neither became a part of the system, nor did you try to fight it with brute force. You used methods which were rather unconventional, and they worked. That is what came out from this. What you shared, that in slums where electricity was being stolen, you did not use the same methods which you used for the big factories who were stealing, because in one case it was greed, where you could take strict action. In another case it was need, which was compelling them to steal electricity, and you used a different set of methods, and it worked. So what it brought out was that they knew what is wrong, that what they were doing was wrong, but the compulsions of life were driving them to it. But once their financial situation improved a bit, as a result of the social work that you initiated in that area, these people, realizing that what they were doing is wrong, automatically corrected themselves. So it's not that they were so greedy as to say, well, anyway, still we can make some more money. Yes, we have gained something from the social work, but continue to make some more money for electricity by stealing the electricity indirectly. So they stopped that. Which just brings out, something very basic which Sri Aurobindo and the mother given a lot of importance, that we all know what is right and wrong from that inner voice, which is the dynamic aspect of the soul, which they have called the psychic being. So in these people who had been stealing electricity for so long out of a need, knew that what they are doing something wrong, it was in some way also hurting them, because the psychic being is not just a judge, it's also a reward and punishment system. So this punishment which was coming from within, they were feeling it, but somehow tolerating that punishment. And when they felt that instead of that punishment, by doing the right thing, we'll get just the opposite. That is immense joy and lasting mental peace, they opted for that. And I'm sure you must have done many things, and you'll have more stories to share in the future from how you turned, sort of changed the image as well as the functioning of that organization which you joined. However, I have one question now after this comment, and that is, when you took this stand to address, in spite of being alerted that you had the threat of getting killed. So now, again, you responded to your voice of the psychic being. It was a bold thing to do, to sort of, in spite of that threat, you decided to go and do what you thought was the right thing to do. And you went and addressed them and asked them what all they did early in the morning, and they talked about all the personal hygiene, which was for taking care of their body. The question that I'm asking is, when you asked in your staff in that company, DVB, what they did early in the morning, some of them said they brushed their teeth, they had a bath, they did and that, and so on, and you tell why did you do all this? To take care of the body. And then you had to say, did you take care of the soul? And I think you probably might not have got a chance to say that, or at least would have said it differently if any of them said that they pray early in the morning. Did really nobody say that they pray early in the morning?
Unfortunately not. So it is about 15 years old story, but there was nobody, and I am not saying that they would not be praying, but nobody mentioned about that I pray. And the overwhelming response was about the activities they do to get ready for work. When they come to work, what do they do? But this was something which got recognized very soon by most of the people, that whatever we do is for the moment, need of the hour, but do we keep doing something which nurtures our soul in a way that when we are in our last journey, we don't regret spending our life the way we have spent. So that was the message clearly coming, and that made many people ask themselves, were they doing the right things so far or not? I should have told you that a week later, I would have received some 10 to 12 letters, people who had named themselves. In the past, we had an amnesty scheme, about 2 years, 1.5 years back, where there was no name on the envelope. It was sealed envelopes, disclosing what kukarams they had done. But this time, many people wrote saying, I was wrong in doing this, I've gone and corrected the situation, and I will be now. So there was a clear sense of understanding from their conduct and from their action, not by their words. And that became so clear also that look, it is not just you being ethical. Very important that you also get branded with your company or any organization that you work for. And in order to make sure that the company or the organization that I work for is also branded as ethical, I must ensure nobody else is acting unethically. So it became more from a self introspection and correction to ensuring nobody else was unethical. And that became a movement then. So people were afraid of being unethical or into practices, because it is not only that they will be caught, but somebody else in the company also who used to be their friends in the crime, they would not let them do this. So I think there was not much that I remember where anybody was saying that he was doing this, which I could have said, yes, you're taking care of your soul. In short, that's the answer. When they started talking about what is a good thing to, how we can help ourselves being ethically correct, and the perception that if you have to make money, if you have to be successful in life, being good, इसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं लल्लू रह जाएंगे आप. So that concept was gone. There was no complaint against me, but yes, there were some people initially who, or not initially, everybody was like that, but there were people, even today there are some people who feel that being ethical and doing good is not always a good thing. But I would say about 95 to 97% people have started realizing, because there were fruits of being ethical being enjoyed by them, and their families getting proud of them. I mean, for example, the ethical compass that I refer to were used by many companies. That if you're doing something and you're not sure whether it is good or bad, from an ethical point of view, what is the test? Okay, I mean, assume for a minute that tomorrow the newspaper carries this headline that Mr. So-and-so did this. How will your family feel? Would they feel great about it, or would they feel ashamed about it? So the answer will tell you what is right, what is wrong. So it's a matter of persuasion to a large extent, but more it is their own self-introspection. And human mind is normally rational, and if it is explained in a way and they experience it that way, it makes a difference. But yes, there are still in those companies, and you have new people joining in, and they take time to absorb, but the branding of the company, the perception about the company by default has become that people who work in this company are ethical. So that is a big thing to maintain, and that's a challenge for the people of that organization to keep their perception intact. So that drives people to be vigilant as to who is not doing that way, who is trying to act in a way that the name of the company can be spoiled. So, I mean, I was quite satisfied with the by following the ethos and the learnings, as I said, from this great institution, and I think good that I got caught bunking very soon, so that then I started attending the meditations more regularly.